Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast, episode 95. I'm Steve Smith along with Karla, Navarro, Wojick. We're sitting in beautiful Boynton Beach. We're at the FM Tennis Performance Center. Karla Navarro. Navarro's a maiden name. Wojick. Married a Polish lad. I'm going to use an Andy Roddick joke. Anybody who has three names is a very good South American clay court player. Excited about our guest tonight, Alex Slezak. I've never met him in person. I know he's a huge fan of Chuck Creasy. In fact, I have right here a stack of quotes. I think it's 84 pages. That'll have to be a second podcast that we have with Alex. He's been mentored by Chuck Creasy, who we had as a guest. And I think anyone who goes back and listens to that podcast will know why you would want to have Alex Slezak write a book on Chuck Creasy. Alex is a physical educator in Pittsburgh, PA, and he's a high school tennis coach. Be exciting to talk to him. He has a feeder system. He's totally into it. How we know him is through our content. And I think that's an exciting part of the story is many people we've never met in person, but they follow the GreatBase content. With that, we have over 5,000 pages on Facebook, Instagram. I think there's 500 plus short videos. We have courses. They're all free, GreatBase Tennis, the website. It's great to have Karla with us. Karla loves tennis as much as anyone. Now, growing up in South America, you didn't play high school tennis, though?
No.
But large family, how many kids again?
7.
And you're the boss. You're number one. You're the oldest.
Number 1.
And you all played team tennis, though, here in the U.S.?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All but one, or all of you?
All girls played college.
Oh, that's right. Your brother, he did not. He was ready for a much higher level at the age of 7, very early.
Yeah.
But let's get Alex on the phone.
Yeah.
And with Pittsburgh, PA. That's a sports town. Trivia question. All the sports teams wear black and gold. Another trivia question is Austin Krajicek. He's in the French Open semifinals. And his mother's from Pittsburgh, Sherry. I've got a few other tennis players I've written down here that are from Pittsburgh. I've had a lot of students play in Pittsburgh. They love Pittsburgh. They have that summer pro tournament.
Hello?
Coach Alex Slezak, Steve Smith,
Yes.
Karla, Navarro, Wojick.
Hi, Alex.
Karla. Thank you, Karla. Steve, thanks for having me on the pod. I'm really excited to do this. It's been a great honor for me.
Likewise, I was just saying, Pittsburgh, PA, you have that summer tournament of futures, I know, for the
Yes, in Mount Lebanon, they have the future. Yeah, on the green clay in Mount Lebanon, they have a futures tournament every summer, yeah.
For the guys, and they all come back saying they love Pittsburgh.
It's a great city. I've lived here my whole entire life, and it's great. I don't have anything bad to say about it.
No, I looked at some YouTube clips of Pittsburgh, knowing that you were going to be on. The three rivers, Steel, Bridges, and Championships.
There's a lot of bridges. There's a lot of rivers, and sports is football, hockey, and not so much baseball at the moment. But at the time there was a time that baseball was big too, and everybody bleeds black and gold here. So it's a great place to live and a great place for sports too.
That's the trivia question. What city do all the teams wear the same colors? I know the Pittsburgh Penguins every once in a while wear those light blue uniforms.
Yeah, there's the throwbacks every once in a while, but black and gold.
With our intro, I said we'd have to have you on for a second podcast and have you talk about Chuck Creasy. I printed it out for today, 84 pages of Chuck Creasy quotes. You got to write the book on Chuck Creasy.
Chuck has been he's been probably the most influential mentor that I've had in my life. Just as a teacher and a coach. I'm also a school teacher as well. And he's changed my life in so many positive ways. And, I've been a guest on his podcast several times, and I have learned so much from him, and I try and write down everything that he puts out there so I can, so I can just remember it. And that's it. I actually was talking to Chuck the other day. He's going to start an Instagram page, and he's going to try and get out some of his, he's going to battle the no ad scoring system there, and he's going to try and put out some information on that so people can become educated. So look forward to that too.
Chuck Creasy, with no ad scoring today, with a small group, we were watching Nadal, Djokovic quarterfinals, French Open, and there were some games that were 12 minutes, 10 minutes, 8 minutes, deuce ad, and almost every weekend we're taking a group of players to the Battle of Boca. The back draw is play to 4, no ad scoring. Every match is, not every time is it no ad. Most of the time it's no ad with a 10-point match tiebreaker. So that would not make Chuck happy.
No, I think for competitive tennis, if you want to be a competitive tennis player, I think it's difficult to become tough playing no ad scoring. And it does also take away some of the fitness, and it takes away some of the, it takes away certain aspects of the game. He calls those long deuce games. He calls those war zones. And it's, you might have a war zone that goes on for 10 or 12 minutes or 15 minutes. And that builds the momentum and it builds the drama of the match. And when you just go out and you have a no ad point and you play 1 point and somebody serves 130 miles an hour and the point's over, does it really add any excitement and drama? Maybe once or twice, but you're never going to get those long marathon, Djokovic, Nadal matches or, things that go on like that with no ad scoring. So, yeah.
Well, you've got great passion for tennis. I know it's something along the lines of where I said that about Karla. You can only go so high, and then you're tied with everybody. There's so many number ones when it comes down to people that have passion for the game. Tell us, your journey, your beginnings in tennis, and up to the point where you are right now.
Yeah, so I do not come from a traditional tennis background. When I was younger, tennis wasn't even a sport on my radar. I don't even think my parents could, at this point in time, even tell you how to keep score in a tennis match. I didn't really start playing tennis until I was in 9th grade, just by chance. My best friend Brian, his uncle Joe, came to Pittsburgh from Chicago for the summer, and he was a tennis player. He's about 50 years old, and he said, "Hey, you guys are pretty athletic. You guys play hockey, you play baseball, you play every other sport." And he gave us 2 tennis rackets and said, "If you keep the ball going long enough for me, then I will, I'll buy you guys some ice cream or something at the end of the day." So we would go out and play with him, and I was a very competitive. My friend was very competitive, and Uncle Joe was a very competitive individual as well. And he used to, in a nice way, he would rub it in that he would win, and he would really, get under our skin. And I think part of that was just because he really wanted to. He wanted us to give his best, and I could not stand to lose to him at all. It bothered me to no end, and that whole summer that he was here, he would pick me up at my house at about 6:30 in the morning, and fortunately, I lived within walking distance of 6 tennis courts. I lived right by a high school, and where I went to high school, there were 6 tennis courts there, and they were in very good shape. And we would go every morning. He'd pick me up because he would only play before it was cool. Like at 8:30, he was done. It was too hot for him. So we played every morning. My parents are like, "Why in the world are you getting up to go play tennis with your friend's uncle?" It just didn't make any sense to them. I was getting up before they were going to work to go play tennis, and that's how my love for the game grew, and that's how I got into it. I've never taken a private lesson in my life. I started off my journey. It was pretty rough. I learned what I could learn, and I used my athleticism, and and then it went from there. I started to play in high school. And then, I just kept getting better and better, basically just on raw athleticism. I did not have a great base. I did not have any information. I was just, I would watch tennis on TV, see what I could pick up. I would watch Pete Sampras play Wimbledon, see what I could pick up. And I would record things on TV, whatever I could get my hands on. And I would just try and get better and better and better. And I did eventually I made it to play college tennis. I played Division II college tennis at Slippery Rock University, which is where I went to school to be a teacher. In the summers, I was able to my high school coach was able to connect me with a country club, and that was my summer job for several summers. I spent the summer, and I'm so thankful for that job. I'm so thankful for that opportunity to go back and work in the summer. I did that all the way through grad school. And I met so many people. I learned so much about the ways of the world. how things worked, and it was just a wonderful experience. But again, I didn't have a whole lot of information, and then my college. As I was at the country club, I understood that I knew that I wanted to work with children, and I wanted to be a teacher and a coach. So I decided that I was going to be a physical education teacher, and that's what I went and studied. I loved sports. I loved exercise. I loved everything about it. And I thought, wow, if I could dedicate my life to, teaching kids how to take care of their body and play some sports and I can wear shorts and a t-shirt to work every day for my life, this is going to be great. So that's what I did. I went and played, or I went and I became a physical education teacher. I got a job in Fox Chapel School District, which is where I'm still at now. I'm 17 years in. And when I finished grad school, the athletic director came to me and said, hey, we would really like you to start to coach the high school tennis team. So I started to do that. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with coaching. I started off with coaching the girls, and now I coach the girls and the boys. And here I am now. And at the beginning of my career, when I became a high school coach, I realized that I knew a lot about fitness. I knew a lot about how to organize things, but I needed better information. I needed to learn how to become a better coach. So much like you, I did not seek out in a van to go out and live in a van and go find everybody. But I did start to, I started to look online, and I started to find different things. But I knew of this Junior Tennis Champion Center in College Park, Maryland. And on just a complete cold call, I called Ray Benton and Vesa Ponca, and I asked, I'm just a high school coach. I can have a couple days. My school is willing to give me a couple days off to come down and visit you. Can I just come down and watch? That's all that I want to do. And I was able to go. They said, well, no one's ever really asked us that before. And I went down for a couple days every fall for several years in a row. I would just go down and I would just watch. I would just watch what they would do. I would watch how they would coach. I would pick up things. And one of the times that I went down, Coach Creasy was there, and he came over and he said, well, this is really interesting. You're coming down here he thought I was a college coach recruiting. And I said, no, I'm just a high school coach just here to learn. And he opened up this door for me. He said, listen, you're not going to stay in a hotel. You remind me of me when I was your age. And you're going to come and you're going to stay at my house. And I stayed at his house, and he gave me an autographed copy of his book, Coaching Tennis. And I still have that. I still treasure that today. It's in my basement, and it says, he autographed, and he said, if you do not do the work you are called to do, it may never get done. And I always thought about that as a teacher, and that pretty much explains, my calling in life to do that. And Coach took me under his wing, and he mentored me, and here I am today. I'm coaching in Fox Chapel. The tennis teams are doing really good. I've had several individual state champions. I've had double state champions. The girls tennis team won a state championship in 2019, and the boys, we've gotten very close, but we haven't gotten a state championship. But we've won in the last 6 years. We've won 5 Western Pennsylvania team titles. And that's where I'm at now.
To back up, what year your friend's uncle, or what decade was that? The 70s, 80s?
Well, I'm 40. So that wouldn't be the 70s or 80s. I would say it would be like 96-ish.
Okay.
97. Probably about 1996 is about when I started playing tennis.
I was asked because of the tennis boom in the 70s.
I believe that was where he became. He got into tennis in the tennis boom in the 70s. That was how he got started. My friend's uncle.
Tell us about your role today. You work with elementary age kids?
That's correct. I'm for 17 years. I'm an elementary physical education teacher. So I spend my day with kids who are preschool through 5th grade, and yeah, my job is to teach them about their body, get them general physical preparation, get them general athletic skills. So they're set up for a lifetime where they can enjoy physical activity, and they have some skills where they can, if they want to pursue a sport, they can go ahead and begin to do that. And I think it's really, I know gym teachers don't always get the best, rap in the reputation in the world there, but I really do think that my job is very important because, the older I get, I just see, kids are less and less physically active, and there's definitely a mind and body component that goes along with it. Kids who are in better shape are definitely better able to, excel in school as well.
Go ahead, Karla.
Yeah, I was just curious about interesting introduction to tennis. First of all, I really like. I think when you start learning on your own is something that very difficult for us to relate because in my family we were all forced to play tennis and we had no choice. Well, so in your case, it's
Yeah.
completely the opposite side. I think where you became interested and all of a sudden you're just searching for information and how to get better and how to teach better. I think that has a lot of value in itself. But I was curious about working with the elementary school kids. How much of your curriculum is tennis related versus the other sports? Because I'm sure that the kids play other sports as well.
Yes, in elementary school, there's nothing that is tennis specific related.
Okay.
We would work on in elementary school they would just work on basic throwing, catching, gymnastic skills. We might use something with like a paddle or in something like that, like a game. But in my job, I guess my teaching job as a physical education teacher, I don't have anything directly related to tennis in that job. We don't even have any tennis courts or anything at the elementary school that I'm at. So,
How many days a week do you meet with, say, a third grader?
I would see them twice a week for 40 minutes. So they're coming to me for 80 minutes a week.
Around the country, there's less and less states that have PE requirements, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, in the, physical education, budgets aren't always the best in certain school districts and certain decisions have to be made. And unfortunately, I think sometimes the arts and physical education are one of the things that, kind of get put on the back burner.
Yeah, I think when it comes down to just basic motor movement, people to, start with tumbling classes or just running mechanics, how to throw.
Yeah, how to jump, how to skip, how to hop, how to regulate, how far how much force do you need to, do, and then just, basic things, even like you would do in tennis, like you teach somebody to serve with a sock, just, throwing balls in a sock and playing a game that goes along with that, where you can trick the kids into, like you say, Dennis Vandermeer always tricks the little buggers.
Yeah.
It just you trick them into you play a game, but you trick them into acquiring some skills during that game.
I remember in high school phys ed, you used to have to change out and be in a uniform. Is that the case in elementary school?
Yeah, in elementary school, no. We're kids in preschool, kindergarten, first grade, second grade. They're not changing. They're just coming in their tennis shoes, and we do the best that we can with whatever they're wearing. But usually, they don't need much motivation to. Usually, gym class is one of their favorite special area classes to attend. So that's not something I have to worry about too much.
Alex, what are the size of the classes?
Usually anywhere between 18 to 22-ish students. It just depends on the class. But yeah, so 18 to 22 kids, and I can tell you that one of the skills that I have acquired in the last 17 years, and it's significantly helped me in coaching tennis, is just since I'm forced to organize and be incredibly organized and be able to manage that many kids all at one time and keep them on task and keep them engaged. It's really helped me in my coaching because I'm able to run large practices, and I have that ability to do that just from my what I do on a daily basis for my job.
Go ahead, Karla.
I was just remembering in Germany when I was working for Mark Hamlin, one of the annual events he would get a group of PE teachers and bring them to the tennis facility. He would teach them how to teach tennis to large groups or a class of 25 kids. And but I think the PE teachers were more interested in learning the game themselves. So, eventually,
Many physical education teachers are very competitive. Yes, that's correct. They're athletes who are competitive themselves. Yes.
So yeah, I think Mark Hamlin tried, but in the end, we ended up teaching I guess the love for the game was stronger, and hopefully, But there was an attempt to reach out to the schools and even bring some of the physical in Europe. In Europe, they bring physical education kids.
And I know that the USTA does that here as well in the United States. I haven't actually done any programs in my school with that, but I know that they reach out and they try and do that. But I think the most difficult thing is, teaching learning how to play tennis is very difficult, and then teaching tennis is also very difficult. So you really have to find somebody who has some real passion that would want to introduce that in a school setting.
I must digress. It's great for me to hear the name Mark Hamlin. Mark Hamlin and I grew up together, and like yourself, Alex, Mark and I grew up, and we didn't grow up hitting tennis balls. I think about high school tennis. We'll get around to that. I do have my mother's high school letter from Utica High School, Utica, New York. But Mark Hamlin was a very good hockey goalie, and over the years he sent all these students to me from Germany, and I trained all of them to go back and just see their coach Mark go, "You were a bad goalie. You were a bad goalie." If their English was a little better, I would tell them that Steve told me that you couldn't stop a beach ball. But no, I remember going and with donating hours and volunteering with the USTA, and I think a lot of efforts have been made to try to take tennis to schools. But I think that's focused more on junior high versus elementary in years gone by in this country. That they weren't really. I don't think the USTA was taking it to elementary kids, but the people who are teaching 7th and 8th grade.
Yeah, I agree. More like middle school age students, and even high school age students. I think that was mostly the focus.
And you go K through 6. How does that work?
Yeah, K through. We actually have preschool in the building that I'm at. We have preschool through 5th grade, so around like 10, 11 years old, and then the kids move on to middle. Our middle school is 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then our high school is 9th grade through 12th grade.
Now, years and years ago, junior high was 7, 8, and 9. I know one of my sisters used to say that 9th grade boys just don't fit in. They're so small when they go to high school. I think if they're in sports and they go to high school, they're lucky to survive.
Yeah, one of the big things I tell a lot of the parents as well, like they'll have a student that'll come, a son that'll come in on 9th grade to the tennis team. And in Pennsylvania, we play boys tennis is in the spring and girls tennis is in the fall. So a 9th grader comes in and they're trying out, and sometimes they're trying out against other 18-year-old boys, and even the 9th grader may have even better technique or better thing, but they just don't have the physicality that an 18-year-old boy is able to have in school. So I know that's a big difference. I see quite a bit on the boys side on the tennis team.
With school tennis for St. Vincent's, Karla's working with kids from St. Vincent's. What age group is that? 7, 8?
That's middle school.
Middle school.
Yes. So that's when they have the competition here in Florida.
Yeah. Tell us about your feeder system.
Yeah. So basically, what happened was I started to coach the tennis team. I was, after I coached some of the girls wanted to train with me, all year long, and we were able to do that at the high school. And I was still working at the country club at the time, and I really just thought to myself, well, why don't I just build a program that I can have a feeder system for school? So yeah, during in the fall and in the spring, I get together every Sunday. We get together and we train, some kids in elementary school, like preschool age kids, 4 and 5, all the way through kids who are in high school. And I have many of my former players come back and help me. I have some kids on the varsity team and help me, and it's great. We'll see. I can see anywhere from 60 kids on any given Sunday. And then in the summer, we're able to do a summer camp as well. This summer we'll be able to do 9 weeks, and again the same thing. Try and get elementary school kids all the way through middle school to high school. They're coming out every day and train. And I think last summer, I saw almost 200 different kids, which is unbelievable. Again, not all of these kids are going to be, some of the kids are just trying out tennis as an activity at that point in time. But I do get some kids that really, they decide, wow, I really would like to pursue tennis, and they're able to it's great because I'm able to help them out and coach them and get to know them before they actually make it to the junior varsity or varsity team in ninth grade. So it's been a great thing, and it's also been able to help raise some money for our program.
No, it's great to hear that about a feeder system. I don't think that takes place nearly enough. It's great to have you on and talk about high school tennis. The other day, being at the Battle of Boca, Josh Record, son of Kevin Record, he works for the UTR now. And so I ran into Josh. So I gave Kevin a call and told him that we were going to interview you. Kevin, if people want to go back and listen to one of our earlier podcasts, we had interviewed him. He's a coach in Tallahassee, Florida, Leon High School. With your athletes that play on your team, I mean, you have when you say feeder system, does it go to junior high, freshman, JV? How's that work?
Yeah, in high school we have a varsity team and we have a junior varsity team. And what I'll have is the kids try out. They play a round robin against each other, and the top 10 or 12 kids will be on the varsity team, and the next 10 or 12 kids will be on the JV team. And if we have more kids try out, then unfortunately I do have to cut them. It's not one of my favorite things to do, but I find that over the years, if I have let kids go, it seems to inspire them a little more to do better. If I keep everybody, kids they're really not that motivated to work as hard because they don't have to, because they know that they're going to make the team no matter what. So yeah, that's how that works in Pennsylvania. And then we have a varsity team, a junior varsity team, and there are some schools that have a middle school program. A middle school program is something I would love to start, but we just need a couple more tennis courts in order to do that because unfortunately we're limited in Pittsburgh. We're limited by the weather, and once school's out, between the varsity and the junior varsity team, we have 6 tennis courts at our high school, and we pretty much use them almost until the sun goes down every single day after school. And so we just don't have really enough space to have a middle school program. But I'd love to have a developmental middle school program, someday in the future. It's a middle school. I think it'd be great. And I'd use the GreatBase curriculum. I left that out. I knew of your work. I found your work on YouTube, years ago. I actually read Dick Braden's book, Tennis 2000, and I read Tennis for the Future. I didn't even know that they were two different. They were basically, one was just a newer version of the other one, but I read them both before I even found your information. And then I found your information. I thought, wow, this guy really, he understands. And I've listened to every podcast that you've had, and it's just, your work. I've been through all the courses that you've had on the GreatBase.com. I've been through every course. I did Tennis Intelligence Applied twice. I'd get on my treadmill. I'd watch a couple lessons and move on to the next day. And I've done that over the past couple of years. And I'd love to come down and we've never met in person, but I would love to come down and visit. Unfortunately, the pandemic happened and some things happened. I had another child, and but I'll make it down to meet you in person and use learn a little even more from you as well. But thanks for your curriculum. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're more than welcome. With coming back to books, Karla was a student of mine years and years ago at Tennis Tech, Tyler Junior College. And we had a course called Contemporary Literature and Tennis Instruction. And I used to really grind the kids, and because people would come in and think it was our program was underwater basket weaving. They thought it was going to be really easy, so I put the pedal to the metal and made it tougher than tough. But there was some books that were set in that course, and one was Chuck Creasy's. It was the complete book of tennis training, I think.
Yeah, I believe that was his first edition, and then he changed it to. It was the second edition was Coaching Tennis. He added some things about the Wardlaw directionals and things like that in the second version.
Yeah. With go ahead, Karla.
Oh, I'm good. I'm following.
You're following. No questions from Navarro.
No, not
I call it. I still call her by her last name. You know, she's a mother of 3, and I go, Navarro, you've done any push-ups today? With a feeder system, you know, elementary kids, I think really, in a lot of ways, I would say, gee, I'd like to be an athletic director. At that really early age, I think Wayne Bryan, when he wrote a letter that was critical of the USTA 10 and under program, and he, in his own way, he's such a positive guy, you know, like the Pied Piper for tennis. And he said, I think it's a great program, but it's 4 years too late. This is what 6-year-olds need to do. And,
yeah, I will say that in my own, sorry to interrupt, but in my own teaching and experience, I think that the smaller rackets and the smaller courts and the different size balls, I think they're great teaching tools. But I have many 10-year-olds that have absolutely no problem playing with a full size racket on a full size court with a regular ball, and they don't have any issues with that at all. I do use the sponge foam balls for kids who are like 4 years old. It's just, it seems like a great way to introduce it to them, and if they get hit with a ball, it doesn't hurt them. But yeah, I think that and I lost my train of thought there when I was thinking of what I was thinking of. But yeah,
with little kids, and you use the word developmental, which is big. We like to have 2 tournaments for the really young kids, and one is a form tournament where you have prizes for check the checkpoints, end up on balance, and you can do it as a team event. As you said, with your group dynamic skills, you can pull anything off. Dennis Vandermeer, you want to use trickery and make it a game. So it is game based, but it's also form based. So that we use the 2 of those and say this is principle based. But then to use targets, or a task where kids are tossing balls underhand. They have to catch it, be able to toss it underhand, catch it. That's a skill in itself, an athletic skill. And then say their partner's hitting a forehand volley, or they're tossing into a forehand ground stroke, and they have to hit, and they've got to catch it on 2 bounces or catch it on 3 bounces, and just different ways to get kids to slow down, so they're not just trying to play home run derby, a baseball term with a tennis racket. I can remember talking to K-Swiss years ago, and they had a league, and I said, why don't you have like a tennis decathlon, have 10 different events? Like we have kids go out and drop hit a ball in the alley, and they catch it, and their partner has to catch it, and you can make that a game. You can have that where they move up, move down based on drop hitting a ball in the alley. You can do the same thing with a spider drill. One spider drill, one side of the court, one on the other, and the winner moves up, loser moves down. But with then when kids are actually hitting in the alley, I always tell visiting coaches, I don't think they really know why they're doing that, because when you hit up the line, the term down the line, you hit off center, or you hit cross court to the center. It's the path of the racket, path of the target. But I think that's where really young players, early child development classes, and I say, okay, get the basketballs out, get the tennis balls out, soccer balls, just all these different activities going on in 7,200 square feet. But teaching the kids fundamentals, teaching them the ready position, unit turn, shape of the swing. I think it's gone away too much where people don't know backswing, contact, follow through. But with your feeder system, is it you have the high school kids, your graduates, your seniors, your varsity members come back and help the kids that come out?
That's exactly right. I'd have kids that have, in the summer when they come back from college, if they don't have an internship and they want to, they want something to do in the summer, have a summer job, they can help me with that. And then, during the school year, I have the older kids, and I always looked at it like it's, they have it's a mentoring system. Coach Creasy he told me about, many years ago, they had it at, he introduced it at College Park. It's called a 3-tier mentoring system. You have somebody above you, you have somebody below you, and then you have your peer group, that's with you, that's trying to keep you on there. And I always tell the kids, the kids that came before you, you're able to stand on their shoulders. You have to help some of the kids below you, and then you have to keep your peers. You have to keep everybody, in check. If somebody's not pulling their weight or is doing something, then you got to take them by the side. If they're a real friend and a teammate, then you have to say that to them. So they know that, we're here for you, but we care about you, but we want you to get the job done as well. Be a good teammate. So, that's really what I try and do. I think that it's just as rewarding for as much as the little kids, the younger kids learn from the older kids. I think it's just as rewarding for the older kids to be able to help some of those younger kids. I know that for me, every day when I get to go to work, I never look at it as work. It's very rewarding for me to know that, I had a positive impact on a kid's life. And oftentimes as a teacher, you don't realize the impact that you have until, I've been doing this for 17 years now. And now I'm getting to the point where kids that I started with are a lot older, and they, they'll reach out to me in a random email or something. They graduated school 5-6 years ago, and they say, "Hey, I really appreciate that story that you told me," or whatever it is. That it makes a lot of sense now, and it really did change my life. So, I think that it's a win-win situation when you have, kids giving back to other kids and helping pull the train along.
So many things you touched upon. I like what you said about no-cut policy. For 15 years, I was in Tampa and Hillsborough Community College, 28 tennis courts. And in the spring, there'd be all sorts of teams that came out. And I would say more so than not, the dual matches was like a picnic. And, I said, well, maybe you brought some tangerines and granola bars instead of cupcakes. But no, I think the reality that I think it's healthy to have it be, have it be where you are cutting players. I mean, I've always said, well, why is a basketball team, the coach isn't keeping everybody, and they just teach real life skills where, okay, you're not good enough now, you got to start practicing, come back next year, try out again. But that's something that's more nationwide, where most high school teams are no cuts, correct?
I think, I would say that there's some programs that have what would be a competitive program, and other programs that are just basically, that's a participation program. It's an after-school activity. And it's nothing against those coaches, but it's maybe just they're not oftentimes in high school tennis, you can end up with, a math teacher that just gets assigned to coach the tennis team, or, has a little bit of background in tennis, and then but they don't really understand. They haven't dove into learning and everything. And just my own personal opinion, I mean, I think that, oftentimes when if you have a no cut policy, I'm not necessarily against no cut policies, but oftentimes what happens is when you have a no cut policy, that, it just for those kids who are very serious about it and really put in the work for their tennis, it cheapens their accomplishments. It's not as I don't know. It takes away from all the work that they've put in. When everybody gets to make the team, it takes away from all their work that they've put in, and kids are less motivated to do things when they're not. I always, Coach Creasy says, when you champion the weak, you weaken the real champions, and I think sometimes that happens. I'm not totally against no cut programs, but I think if you're going to have a no cut program, you should maybe have something like, hey, you have to run less than a 7-minute mile, which I think should be more than able for most high school players if they're actually training. You have to run less than a 7-minute mile, and if everybody runs that mile, then okay, then you'll be a part of the team, or you have to reach some kind of physical standard in order to make the team and be on the team, just so it sets some kind of standard. So it's just not everybody makes it, but there's some kind of standard that you have to meet. And I think that's good for kids in life too, because I think, real life, there's standards and there's goals that you have to meet. And I think it's a good life lesson to teach them as well.
Well, if you cut someone, you have the feeder system. That's for all ages, right? I mean, so someone gets cut.
Yes. Yeah. If you cut someone, I think it's, I've had kids who have gotten cut and they went back to work and they really, went after. I've had kids just like me in 9th grade. Yeah. They've tried out for the tennis team in 9th grade, and, they didn't make it, and they didn't realize how competitive it actually was. And they went to work, and they were able to get better. And maybe they didn't make the varsity tennis team, but maybe the next year they made the JV tennis team. And that was a tremendous accomplishment for them, to be able to do that in 1 year without really playing much tennis. And it's difficult in the winter to play tennis here in Pittsburgh. There's only so many indoor tennis courts, so they're practicing at home, and they're hitting on their backboard at home, and they're getting better. And, it's a great accomplishment for them, and it's real, lasting self-confidence because it's something that they did, they put in the work, and they can be proud of it.
Yeah, I think I ask kids today, do you know what it means to be cut? And they think it's, if you get cut and you're bleeding, you got to go get a Band-Aid. They don't know what it means to be cut. Your name's going to be cut off the list. I always tell a story about my youngest son, and they fell in love with ice hockey, and I made arrangements to live in Toronto. And my son Connor wasn't quite 5, and so he goes to a tryout, and you're just paying for the ice time, like $10 for the hour, and so he gets cut. His older brother made the team. They ended up being the provincial champions. But anyway, with when we left, I told my son Connor, I said, he's 4 or 5 years old. I said, your athletic career has already surpassed mine, because I grew up in a very small town where there were more cows than people, and I was never cut from a team. And that means I didn't try out for some very many big-time teams. You just have to be able to put things in perspective. I do think a lot of men, the older they get, the better they were. But stories like Dick Stockton, who was on the Dream Team, early on, he was cut as an Olympian. Or everybody knows the story about Michael Jordan being cut.
Yeah.
I have a experience of the opposite. I started coaching Millennium High School in Arizona, a new school, and I only had one player, my brother. So I had to go and find players. Immediately I went to the soccer team, where it was full of Mexican kids. They all came from the agricultural families that were around the area, and I asked them, who wants to learn how to play tennis? And they all were like, me, but they didn't have rackets, they didn't have shoes, but they were like really willing to go and learn. And Peter Mahoney connected me with the Wigwam Resort, and he was able to gather the members from the Wigwam Resort, and they got rackets and shoes and all kinds of things for these kids who could not afford any of this. So for them, it was just an opportunity to get in a rich sport for the rich people. So
yes, and that's true. And I should mention that. I mean, there's definitely programs that are out there like that. I mean, where I'm at, I'm in a suburb of northern. Outside of Pittsburgh, a little bit north of Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. It's a very well-to-do area. I mean, in the school district that I work at, there are 3 country clubs that are within the same couple square miles of each other. Mm-hmm. So I mean, it's not just me that's developing tennis players. There's other coaches at the clubs that there's kids that come in that I've never met before. They come in 9th grade that are able. So there's other feeder. We're very fortunate that we have. In the areas I'm at, I can't take all the credit for it. I can't say it's just me that's out there doing it. We're very fortunate that we have, a lot of tennis in our area, and I'm happy that I have a good relationship with most of the other coaches at the other country clubs. So it's been a very rewarding, and just a good situation that we have. And I wish there were other places that had the same situation, but it's not the reality that's out there.
Well, I do backtrack, repeat Karla's story, parts of it. Peter Mahoney, I had a chance to meet him because Karla and her husband, Robert, invited me out to train players and coaches at the Wigwam Resort. And, you got to find people that help get tennis rackets in kids' hands.
Yeah, and some of these kids ended up... falling in love with tennis and playing for the rest of the high school, and they went to school, to university, and the tennis just opened doors for them because, they ended up playing good tennis, intramurals, and one of them just, not long ago, he called me and he said, I finished university and I just bought a house with a tennis court.
Yeah.
So, he was so
tennis really does open a lot of doors. I mean, it's open. I would not be where I'm at in my life right now in the school district that I'm at and in the place that I'm at without tennis. It's opened so many doors for me, and it's a great game. I'd like to get as many kids involved in as I can.
Well, I think it's great. You're touching so many lives. I mean, 200 kids. You said 200 kids last summer. 200 different
Yeah,
kids?
last summer I think we had 200 different kids over the course of the summer. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I think, we tennis coaches have to stop and ask, those in junior tennis for sure have to stop and ask, how many kids are you actually working with? And many times it's a very, very small number.
I like
Yeah, and there's not.
Yeah, go ahead.
I said there's nothing wrong with working. I mean, if you have kids who you really, tennis is a very individualized thing. If you only have 3 kids that you are going to train or whatever it is that maybe you have that relationship with them, I still think that's just as impactful, sometimes even more impactful, because you can have you have a closer relationship with them because you spend so much time together.
Yeah, I really appreciate also the mentoring system that you were talking about. It gives continuity to the program, and you can see throughout the years how the kids learn how to give back. We're using that with my husband in Europe in the summers, and they usually they're using also the buddy system, and where they help each other. And I think without Steve and without his guidance, it would be difficult to see it, because we tend to group kids according to their level of play, and with the tennis tech and with Steve's program, we learned how to adjust the program so that kids from different ages and different levels can work with each other and benefit and grow, because there are so many areas that you can work, and especially when they play tournaments, it's always nice to see them preparing each other and kind of acting sometimes as managers, sometimes as coaches, and sometimes as players, and rotating those tasks. And I think that's one of the many skills that they can do, and that we got it all from Steve.
No, for sure, it's a great benefit, and I think what becomes amusing to me is, I'll have say a 20-year-old will come back from college, and he'll go to the local grocery store, and he'll see one of the kids that he was coaching tennis earlier in the day, and the kid is just amazed that, I can't believe that I saw Coach so and so at the grocery store. They're like the biggest superstar, and I think that once a little for a 6 or 7-year-old, if they see their teacher like me at the store, it's like the most amazing thing in the world. We're like a superstar to them. We're like Michael Jordan or LeBron James or something else. And I think that it's very inspiring for kids. The little kids, when they see older kids, are willing to spend some time with them and just inspire them a little bit. And I think it's when the older kids see that, I think it's a very gives them a little bit different perspective on the world that they probably don't remember from when they were little kids.
Oh, that's a very good point. I think with peer teaching, station training is great. Take 7,200 square feet, take one tennis court. We could talk to you about what you do indoors in a gym. I mean, obviously you have to do the same thing, and you have to mix of quite a few different levels. But the highest form of retention for learning is to teach. I think one thing that we get stuck on, I mean, I think you have to be your own best critic, and certainly at times we have to go, wait a minute, we're over teaching here. We make these slow motion videotapes, narrated slow motion analysis, and a lot of times it's a tool of persuasion, because the people that we're working with, they've already worked with 10 different pros, and they've heard 10 different opinions. But the USTA does get beat up, I think, too many times. We don't stop and think, okay, there's so many dedicated people to tennis, and there's been so many worthy causes over the years. So their theme for the longest time was play to learn. It's not learn to play, it's play to learn. But I think it's a sandwich. You have to come from both sides, the top and the bottom. But I do think it's true that if you can create that spark and you let a kid play, they rally, they win, they lose, and they realize it's a game. They realize that it's a sport. It's something they can really dedicate time to and get better at. But in the end, if you don't circle back and do any of the work on learn to play, how's it go? That children are at the mercy of their impulses and become slaves to their habits, because they just, I'm sure you see that where they grab the racket. Really little kids, they'll pick a racket up a different way each time. And it really should.
And I think,
go ahead.
I was going to, you made me think of something. I think oftentimes, kids, they start to get, there's this word like burnout. People get burned out. I don't think kids actually get burned out. I think when they stop learning, then they start to lose interest and boredom. So you can have a game-based program and the kids have fun. They have fun for so many years, but then eventually it gets to the point where, well, they know that they're not learning. They're not improving anything. There's nothing that they've learned to grow from that. And I think that's when kids start to really get lost on tennis. They get burned out when they stop learning, not because they play so many hours or whatever it may be. So there's definitely got to be a learning component to it.
Yeah, Vic Braden used to say, tennis doesn't burn people out, people burn people out. And another thing, I know Bill Jacobson, heard him say one time, where it's not burnout, it's frustration factor. There's a ceiling because they have so many holes in their game. There's a ceiling. They keep practicing and practicing, and they make the same mistake. Braden, I love how he used to say, it's the engineering problem that causes the attitude problem, not the attitude problem.
And I know in my own tennis experience, I can relate to that 100%. I could hit as many balls as I wanted, but I couldn't get it any better because I didn't have the information in order to be able to do that.
When we first put out a course online, Vic Diamond's a longtime friend. He's been coaching high school tennis as long as I've been coaching tennis. I'm sure he's close to 50 years. And I know public high schools have the resources, but on rainy days, in the beginning, he would have all the kids go in and watch the course, like say the GreatBase Initiative. It's like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And just, everybody can sit in a chair and they look straight ahead, and you have the resources to do that. Because a lot of times when you tell somebody, hey, go home and go to this website, it's all free, they still don't do it. Unfortunately. Go ahead.
No, I was just say, you can't. I mean, I've recommended so many people, here's a parent, hey, go watch this and go through the course and learn how to teach your kid how to play some tennis, and you can toss some balls and help them just as much as I could. And it's just, but people have to have the motivation to do it.
I think a lot of parents are young parents of young children. They're leery. They don't want to become the parent who climbs the fence and win, and the tennis coach from the wrong approach. Tennis parent from hell. I'm a father of two, and I understand it's coaching your own kids is a difficult proposition. It's not the easiest thing, and being a parent is definitely the hardest job in the world. Yeah. With how about the kids that you coach on your varsity, for example, are playing multiple sports?
There's several kids are. Our number one singles player this year on the boys team, he actually was on the basketball team, who was they were in the state championships for basketball. They made it to the semifinals in the state basketball tournament, I believe, which is great. So I actually lost him for the first 2 weeks of the season because he was traveling with the state basketball team to the basketball tournament, and he couldn't be in two places at once. And then he walks on the tennis court and he comes out and he plays, and he's our number one player. And, he had a great season. So yeah, I mean, we have several kids that play multiple sports. We also have, in the past, we've had some kids who have only played tennis. We had a state champion a couple years ago. In 2019, I think he won the state championship, and all he did was play tennis. He went on to play tennis at Yale. We cover the gamut, but there's definitely, we have in high school tennis, I would say we have more multi-sport athletes than those who are just pursuing tournament tennis.
And what about homeschoolers? Do homeschoolers play on your team?
Yes, we've had some homeschoolers play. But now with the whole pandemic, we actually have we have online school in the school district that we're at. Now we have a setup for that. The high school was set up for that even before the pandemic. We have some kids that go to school and then they're online half the day. But yeah, so we've had homeschoolers as well that have been on the team. One of my homeschoolers, he's great. He was on the boys tennis team for 4 years, and all those championships. And he went on to play tennis at Grove City College, which is right up the street here. And he's a complete homeschooler. Went to homeschool from the very beginning all the way through to the end of his high school career. But the tennis team was a great, it was just a great avenue for him. He was also played soccer, varsity soccer as well. And it was just a great experience for him. And he was no different just because he was at homeschool. He was no less a part of the team, or, he was just fit in with everybody else. So it was great.
Alex, do you have access to indoor courts?
We do have some access to indoor courts. We set aside some money every year that we're able to, rent some indoor tennis court time if we need to, and play, matches if it rains, or sometimes with the boys. And we start in March outside with the boys, and sometimes it snows. Sometimes we get 6 or 8 inches of snow at the beginning of March here in Pittsburgh. So yeah, we have some access to indoor courts. Tennis it's getting more and more difficult because more and more indoor clubs here in the area are closing. And I guess this past season was even a little more difficult because pickleball is now, sometimes we would leave school actually early and go play a match at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon when there was nobody in at the indoor tennis courts before all the junior programs would start. And now we're having some difficult times finding indoor court time because pickleball is renting all the indoor court time during the day, so they're able to play pickleball on the tennis courts inside here in Pittsburgh. But yeah, we have some access.
And what about access to gym?
Being a phys ed teacher, we have access to, it's easy for me to get access to a gym or get some kind of space inside. I mean, we've done things before where we've worked out in the hallway. We do some running, we do some conditioning, we get the rackets to do shadow swinging. We work out in the rain. I keep the old tennis balls, and if it's not raining outside but the courts are wet, well, sometimes we practice with dead balls in the rain, and the kids get a kick out of it. Sometimes we play we'll have a mini tennis tournament or something where they're not, going full out and running on a slick court. And, we do that. We try and find some creative ways. And sometimes it's been a little bit more challenging with the pandemic and things that happen in school and some restrictions that, it's been a little more difficult. I know that you were going to ask about my setup in my indoor setup. I actually haven't done that yet. I finally tracked down, what was the gentleman's name that made the backboards that you gave me his name? I forget his name.
Andrew Garcia.
And yes, so you gave me his name. I was able to buy. I bought 8 backboards in the fall. So I'm gonna bring those inside, and that'll give me a place that I have a gym, where I teach at the school that I teach. So we could have a place that, I can't force anybody to practice in the off season, but we might have a place that we'd be able to, go ahead and get a workout in after school on some backboards. And we have a stage there. It's an elementary school. We have a stage, and I thought about getting like one of those portable tennis nets that they use for professional tournaments. And, we can practice. We don't have enough room to have a full tennis court, and the ball, obviously is going to slide on the floor that's in there, but we can hit balls into the curtain, drop feet into that curtain. And so that's my idea. I wasn't able to do that this winter just because of they were actually using the gym that I normally teach in. We were actually using that as the cafeteria, so we could spread the kids out a little bit more. And I was actually teaching gym in the cafeteria, which really took a lot of creativity on my part to be able to have a smaller space with really only a 12-foot ceiling, and still be able to get the kids to exercise and work out. But you make the best of the situation that you have, and you figure out a way. There's a problem, you just figure out a way to work around it, and we were able to do that. So hopefully next winter things will be back to normal, and we'll be able to do that.
With the gymnasium, probably you have to share that with many special interest groups, correct? I mean, people want to come in and play volleyball or basketball.
Yes. I mean, there's just a process you go through just to, reserve the facility or whatever. But typically in elementary school and, with the pandemic, there hasn't been a lot of groups that have come in and rent facilities. They do that more in like the middle school and the high school where they have a full-size gym or they have a bigger space to be able to go ahead and do that. But yeah, I mean, there's youth basketball that comes in and plays, practices some nights and things like that. But you're just creative and you work around it and you go from there.
Alex, a question. Have you tried to do anything with the USTA team tennis? How do you see it, or the leagues that they have, especially in the off season? Or
I have not done anything with I haven't done anything with the USTA at all. I don't really. I'm not very well connected with them. I don't really know who does I've never really asked for any help, and they've never really had any help offered to me. I do recommend that, the kids who are more serious, I tell them to play one tournament a month, and, find a tournament, play it. And even if you're going out and you're losing and you're playing, at least you're getting experience and you're learning how to compete, and, you're being able to put those skills to the test, and then, I really need to improve my serve because it's not getting the job done. But no, I don't really have any connection with the USTA here.
yeah, because with the from our experience in Belgium, they get the kids every 8 weeks. And they have them play team tennis against each other, and of course they have the indoor facilities and all of that. But that's more at the club level, where they go.
Yeah, they definitely do that here in the summer, but it's more focused on like the kids who already have a USTA middle states ranking or something. They would be the kids that they would be asking to play on the team, not the kid that plays 3 sports and only plays tennis in the summer and during the high school tennis season. He doesn't play a ton of tournaments. That wouldn't be a kid that they would be pursuing, even though, his skill set is really just about the same as everybody else's.
For 3 years, we were neighbors to the USTA national campus. I know Arvin Don from Philadelphia. He brought a group of kids down to play in a USTA team function. And it was obviously more at a recreational level, or not as competitive. But I think the more opportunities that people have to play, the better. But I think that's one nice thing about the club system in Europe.
And I think the nice thing about that is when they go to these matches, they don't go with the parents. They will go with the coaches, and that creates a little bit of camaraderie between each other, and with the coaches, they're always emphasizing good sportsmanship, and they are really emphasizing how to get along with each other, how to they try not to have umpires intervene too much or at all. They try to have the kids figure out scores, or whether the ball was good or out, and really check after this part of the development of the personality of the kid in a team context. And I think it's good because the parents stay really out of that, and it creates a completely different mentality. It's more of a team mentality, and I don't think we do that enough in the U.S.
Yeah, I think.
One of the things.
Go ahead, Alex.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead, Steve.
Well, I was going to say, so many different experiences. I've been very privileged to go to all these different countries. I remember being in Sweden a few times with my boys. They're 18 months apart, and the parents were not allowed. They could go to the tournaments, but the kids had to travel as a group. So if you lose, you're still there and you're hanging out and you're,
Correct.
Helping warm somebody up, or you're scouting, or you're charting a match. I think also too, it's tennis is a microcosm of life. Where here in the U.S. we're our mass transit system. There are buses and there are trains, but for the most part, it's just not like Europe, where it's much easier for a coach to travel with, a group of 20 kids. They just get on a train and go to the next town over. But in the U.S., we're a car society, so I know that's a factor. But I tell the parents, be the furthest one from the fence. I have all these rules for parents, but they definitely get too involved.
I think oftentimes tennis really, in essence, it's designed to be an individual sport. It's not designed to be a team sport. One of the things that that I have a difficult time is as you said in your podcast before, that the individual becomes bigger than the program. And one of the things that I start with, and you'll appreciate this being a hockey fan, I make the kids do a little bit of running, and I tell them about the movie Miracle, where they're puking on the ice, and they again blow the whistle, and again, and then they finally say, Michael Ruzioni, I play for Team USA. And I said, well, I make them do something like that. And, I said to them, for the next, 10 weeks or 12 weeks, or however long our season is going to go, you just realize that you don't play for yourself for these next, 12 weeks. You play for, our high school, you play for our team, and you represent everybody that's out there on the team. And, it's really worked very well, because I've had success. We have an individual singles tournament, individual doubles tournament for state champions, and we also have team tournaments. And the things that have been the most impactful on kids' lives have been the team tournament. They just when you take a group of boys and they give everything they have, and they make it to the finals and they lose and they cry their eyes out, but they know that it's been a great bonding experience for them. It's really good life lessons, and it's something that you're going to need to learn. To not everything in life is always going to be able to be about you all the time.
Yeah, we have the junior song where you have kids say "I, me" very slowly. I, me, I, me. I have to go now say it faster and faster. And I, me, I, me, I, me. That's the junior tennis song. With team practice, we have a player visiting that we've worked with the last 5 years. He had a ton of fun. His team won the state championship. I think here in Florida, there's 1A, 2A, all the way 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 5A. And don't quote me on this, but I think that his answer was 2. I said, well, how many practices did you have? And they just get together for the matches. In Florida, at one point, maybe it's the rules changed, but you just had to play 4 matches. So these large academies, say in Bollettieri's, which is now called IMG, they've always been the largest, and they have a pretty strong tennis team. But to me, it's not really a team if they're not together, they're not practicing. What are your thoughts on team practice?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would love to have more team practice. What happens with the tennis season so compacted into, basically for the boys or the girls, it's basically like a 12 to 13 week season if you make it all the way to the state tournament. And unfortunately, there's individual. We do have individual tournaments within the season, so those take up some days. And then, of course, something always happens where it rains, and then a match gets canceled, and you have to give up one of your practice days to have a match. I wish that the season was longer. So you had a little bit more opportunity, but there's certain constraints, especially with the weather here in Pittsburgh. The girls, the beginning of their season's great. The end of their season, it's getting dark pretty early, and it's getting pretty cold. And for the boys, the beginning of the season is sometimes, like I said, sometimes it's snowing, and you'd like to be able to have a team practice outside, but you got to do something else. Or and then at the end of the season, the weather's nice, but it's the end of the season. So yeah, I wish there was more time. If anything in life, I wish there was more time to do a lot of things. But you got to do the best with what you got.
Well, I think even where you have the fair weather players, where you have lots of sunshine, it's the role of the prima donna, where you're so good you don't have to come to team practices. I had a mom.
Yeah,
I just had a mom tell me that her daughter, was approached by a high school coach, said she doesn't have to come to practice. She can just play matches for us. And I think that really takes away from the experience if you don't have team practices.
Yeah, there's some, I've had experiences in the past where, I've had players come to me and say, hey, look, I just want to come and play the matches. And I said, well, and I handle that situation, I just say, look, well, how about you come and give it a try? And if you don't like it, then we can have a conversation about it. And if you don't want to give it a try, then I don't think maybe being a part of the team is probably for you, because you're not going to fit in with the culture that we've created here. And I'd say most of the time, not every time, but most of the time, it works out where a kid comes and say, this guy actually knows what he's talking about, and he can help me. And it's worked out. I mean, even a couple of years ago, probably one of my most proud coaching moments was the boy that went to Yale. He was at the state singles tournament, and he was in I believe it was the semifinals, and he was losing because he was a baseliner, and he plays back, 8 feet behind the court. He loves to play on clay. He runs a 4-minute mile. The kid's fast as can be, but he's a defensive player, and this other kid was playing serve and volley on him. And he was getting beat, and he did not understand how to fix the problem. And I was able to go down and tell him, I said, look, you're just get right on the baseline and get that ball on top of him before he's volleying inside the service line. You can't make his life that easy. And after the match, he said to me, he said, Coach, I thank you because you got me through that match. Without you, I would not have won that match. So, you have to earn the respect of some of these kids. High school tennis, again, it's not maybe the most respected thing, but once you get some respect from some of these kids, and you're able to coach them. But you have to build that relationship to be able to do that.
Yeah, I think that's the difference, Alex, because the kids know that you offer, the knowledge, and they know that they are going to improve their tennis with you. So you are a little bit in a different position than most of the high school coaches, I would say.
No, it is true. I mean, I have a different background, and this is something that I have really spent a unbelievable amount of time. I mean, how many books I've read and videos I've watched, and the time that I've spent to be able to become a better and better coach. It's just, but I think that high school tennis, we were talking about the USTA before, and I mentioned this to Steve, excuse me, in an email. There's over 300,000 kids that participate in high school tennis, and there's really only about, excuse me, don't quote me on the number because I don't know, but there's only around 25,000 kids that actually play play tournament tennis. Excuse me. So, I think that the USTA should focus some efforts on high school tennis because there's a whole lot of kids that are playing that if they had some resources, they'd be able to benefit from it.
Yeah, I think that number 25,000 is that you only have to play 3 tournaments a year.
Yeah, 3 tournaments or more, I think is what it was. Yeah.
With actually for our listeners, we talk about Bill Ayers, who coaches cross country in Fayetteville, Manlius in Central New York. He has a book called Amazing Racers, and he does with his team is he gives them. Of course, it's different. Here's a running program. You can go do it on your own. But with routines, to have your kids do routines, do you try to do that where you have kids in the off season?
It is something that I would like to do more and more and more of. I spend a lot of time with some kids who are younger. Like I said, there's some kids that I do coach all year long that are younger. I have some kids. I go to their house and I show them how to practice at home and make a checklist for your refrigerator and go ahead and do it. And then we have some kids that are 8 and 9 and 10 years old that are out there doing it. And I know that routine is going to really benefit those kids, in the future. Not all kids have that motivation to be able to do that. But I find that it's difficult to get kids who, I guess you could say, if the horse has been out of the barn for a while, it's kind of difficult for them to be able to go back and make changes and do routines. But I try and focus my effort on some of those younger kids that I know that I can reach them and do that.
With 300,000 plus high school tennis players, one thing about the price of high school tennis, the price is right. Could you talk a little bit about money? And it's free. Tennis is so expensive.
Yeah, tennis and high school tennis is free. There's no cost associated with it to play. It's free. It could be beneficial. And really there's no, every state has its own differences. There's no limits on really how much a coach can, you're not allowed to have mandatory practices, but a coach could do as many practices as they want in the off season if they have the facilities, if they have the area, as long as it's, voluntary. And if you get kids who are interested and you take something like the the GreatBase curriculum and just go to work, then, you can do it. But you just, you have to find somebody who has the passion and the love to be able to go out and just do that with kids,
And Alex, how about your feeder program? Is that also free for the kids?
So the feeder program that I have, it is not free. There's some costs associated with it. It's not expensive by any means. But there's some costs associated with it. I give some kids a summer job. We're able to, I rent the tennis courts at the school. So there's some money that goes back to the school as well. And, and I just find that, kids are, people are, if it's free, then, if there's some cost associated with it, they have some skin in the game and they're more, they take it a little bit more seriously, but, we also, like I said, we live in a very fortunate area. There's never been a kid that has ever come to me and said, I wanted to play tennis. And if they couldn't afford to play tennis, I wouldn't give them a scholarship to be able to just, you come and play as much tennis as you want. And I'd give them a racket or whatever it is they need. And, we also have we live in a very well-to-do area. We have, there's actually a nonprofit organization who kind of bridges the gap between school and home. So anything that a parent might need, and they've offered to, scholarship any kids or buy any kids rackets or shoes or anything that they would need to be able to, pursue tennis. They've offered to do that. We haven't had to use that very much, but it's there. So again, we live in we have a great, great community that we have where I'm at. It's great.
Nice.
It's great that you have your own courts here in Florida. It's amazing how many public schools don't have tennis courts. Actually, Texas A&M, I was in charge of a junior college tennis team. We were on this junior college tennis campus for 15 years. I was 25 years. I was on junior college campuses. Tyler Junior College, and then Hillsborough Community College. Long story short story long, we go to the nationals. And at that time, Texas A&M, both their men and women had qualified to host the regionals. So then the junior college had to be on these junior high courts. Because we couldn't use the A&M facility. The courts were fantastic, all over College Station. Was it Bryan College Station, 2 different towns. Amazing facilities. One of my sons homeschooled, the other one played at a Jesuit school. And the Jesuit school, they didn't have their own tennis courts. And it really took away from the experience because the tennis players, they would go just a few miles away and play on public courts, and they just weren't around the other athletes. But it's great that you have 6 tennis courts.
Yeah, it's great that we have 6 tennis courts. There's high school programs in our area that don't have any tennis courts, and it's very difficult for them to get anything started. It's difficult because it's tough when you have kids who come. It's easy when they walk right from school. They just walk outside of school and they're right there at the tennis courts. But it's difficult when you have to get on a bus. You have to go somewhere, and I know that. We have universities, University of Pittsburgh here, they don't have any tennis courts. They didn't have any tennis courts on their campus at all. They would have to rent tennis courts at a local club, an indoor club, so they could even practice. And, unfortunately, I believe they dropped their program, a couple years ago. But, it's tough to get a program going without tennis courts. I mean, that's just the way it is.
I've had students play at the University of Pittsburgh, but I've had students get accepted, which is amazing to get into Carnegie Mellon, but I don't believe I've ever had anybody play at Carnegie Mellon. So it's amazing if you and the listeners want to find out about what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's a pretty high-tech city, really. It's definitely moved from, industrial city to, we have hospitals and Carnegie Mellon and just technology and, there's Google's here. It's just it's a busy place. It's a desirable place to live. I mean, we have people that really are moving here from all over the country, which is amazing. How about fundraising? Do you run any? Do you have any activities, functions for that?
Yeah, we do. We actually do a fundraiser where my assistant coach several years ago was actually the varsity golf coach, and he was a tennis player as well, but he was my assistant coach on the boys team. And prior to that, we had done no fundraising. We didn't have a boosters organization or anything, and he actually did a fundraiser with the golf team where he just asked kids to, hey, write 10 letters to people and just ask them for donations. And we started to do that with the tennis team, and it's been very successful. We actually don't even fundraise every year. We get enough funds come back from these letters where people just ask their grandma or grandfather or a local business or somebody, and then we've been able to to use that money. We buy the kids some we don't make a ton of money. We don't raise a ton of money, but we're able to pay for their banquet and a dinner at the end of the year, and we get them all some clothes that they're able to keep. And if we need some snacks or something, granola bars or something, the boosters is there to be able to do that. So so it's, again, we're very fortunate. We live in we have a good community that supports us with everything. But we used to there was in the past prior to me coaching, I know that they had done some car washes and some things like that. So there's ways to make money, to raise money for your tennis program if you want to. And people definitely, if it's, I find that if it's for something that's, you ask and it's for something like, a tennis team or, your kid's sports or your neighbor's sports or something, people are, more apt to give something for that.
Yeah, very quickly on fundraising. I lived in Tyler, Texas, 10 years, and that's where Karla and I met. As I mentioned, so there was Robert E. Lee, John Tyler, and T.K. Gorman. And I have to say first and foremost up front that I had a self-motive to help T.K. Gorman out. Is we raised money for them, we coached their team, but in the off season, I had the keys to 2 gyms. We had a football field. We had, they had a gym, a weightlifting. I say gym, a weightlifting area. The two basketball typical gyms. It was fantastic to have that. Because we would train. It gets very hot and humid, obviously, in Texas. But what we did was sunrise to sunset. And it's just a tennis marathon very quickly. You get, each kid has to get, say, 10 sponsors, and they're going to practice 10 hours, and you do it in November. Of course, wherever you live, in November in Texas, okay, this from sun to sundown, you got 10 hours. And we would do 40 minutes of really slow drills. You were part of that, Karla.
Okay.
And then we'd have 10 minutes of contests, prizes donated, and then 10 minutes of bagels and juice that would be donated by a local grocery store. And we were close to raising $10,000 in doing that. And then so if it was 10 people, $2 per hour, you had to go for the 10 hours, or somebody could just write a check for $200. But to digress, one thing that I created, I thought it was going to be 2 sports. It ended up being 3. So we had some South African tennis players. I think it was John Lofna Diago would have been one of them. And he went on and, he did very well at the Grand Slam level. And he's had a very successful coaching career. So the South Africans, they couldn't play. And there were some other kids too. They couldn't play basketball very well, some foreign players. So in this gym, they would play soccer until the ball got in the lane. And the lane is what, it's 15 feet. I don't know how wide it is, but the area where the player shoots the foul shot from. But as soon as the ball would go in the lane, you're supposed to use your hands. But it became a third sport, became rugby. So they were playing soccer in the outskirts of the lane. The ball would go in the lane, and everybody would dive for the tennis ball or the basketball. And then from there, they would try to get the ball in the basket. But no, it's always great to have access to a gym. If you can have kids play on a wooden floor. So that school had 2 gyms. One was a tartan surface, a rubberized surface, and the other one was the wooden surface. But no, I think as far as uniforms and there's always things to create some team functions where there can be team bonding. What do you do to try to bring the team together as far as functions away from the tennis courts?
No, I'm so away from the tennis court. I actually try and leave that to the kids. I know that the girls teams always do a thing. They always take charge and they want to do team dinners and they want to get together. The boys have a tendency more to, want to get together and play basketball or do something together afterwards. But I really leave that up to the leaders on the team to, if you do something outside of school. I'm a very busy person. I have 2 kids of my own, so I coach two sports, and I only have so much time. But I really leave that up to the kids to be able to do. And as far as things that I would do on the team, I just know that once we go through our tryout and all those kids, they earn their spot, then they have instant respect for one another. Because they earned getting there. It wasn't something that they were given, or they just made it because they showed up, and that creates some mutual respect and some team bonding as well. And just after we get through the tryouts, then it's just and I always end the tryouts with the Michael Eruzione and tell them that they're playing for something bigger than themselves for the next so many weeks. So that's what I try and do.
I've heard it said where the coach can choose their captains, but they can't choose their leaders. Do you have a set format? Go ahead.
No, I actually do not pick captains. I don't have any captains at all. I think that anybody can be a leader, whether you're, just because you're older doesn't necessarily mean that you might be the best leader, because some kids lead through, some kids lead better through example. Some kids are more outgoing, they lead in different ways. They're more vocal. And, I don't have any captains on my team at all. I just, I taught the kids who have been on the team before, they know that, I always tell stories and things, at practice or after matches or whatever it is. And they know that they're responsible to, in that mentoring system, they're responsible to help bring those other kids into the fold. And it's worked out pretty well.
No, that's a good answer. We don't have captains, but I'll just put somebody in charge. Say, okay, you're the captain. You go make this drill work. And many times I'll have a younger player be in charge, or I'll have a player who's very shy, very introverted, and I said, just give him the title of the drill. I said, the drill. Go over there and explain the drill.
And I've studied personality types and brain typing and all those things. That's helped me just in being a teacher as well, in my day-to-day, workings with kids, and know how, when you're able to pick up on how a kid's wired, it's a lot easier to teach them because you're able to approach them in different ways. And it helps me a lot in practice too, because I know these are the kids who need routine structure and they want to do the same thing. And then I have the other kids who are the outgoing, want to have fun, don't really want to do a lot of work, but they'll be a great competitor because, they're not so, they don't get, they like the competition as opposed to just the routines and the drills and things like that. So it helps me to be able to run practice.
With the industry being riddled with, the thought that the better player is the better teacher, I think many high school coaches, they'll have the junior perhaps who's had too much attention, and the high school coach will say, hey, I think you need to be looser in your shoulder or toss more to the right, something that's so basic, get the racket further below the ball. And then they'll go to the parents and go, the coach is telling me all the wrong things. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Yeah,
I mean, I've had that happen to me too. I mean, you try and help a kid along, and it really has to. Basically, I always think about it like this: no one cares what you know until they know that you care, and you really have to. If you're meeting someone brand new and they've been playing tennis and they have a relationship with another coach, you don't want to go in and say, as a know-it-all or an egomaniac and say that, this is the way that you need to do it, because, somebody's not going to be receptive to that. So you have to build that relationship. And then once you're able to build that relationship, you can start to sneak some coaching in. But, kids are very smart. It doesn't take very long for them to know that, somebody either knows what they're talking about or somebody doesn't know what they're talking about. And, you just, as a coach, you just have to do the work and be very, be prepared so you're able to coach, all levels of play. And, I myself was not a standout tennis player by any means. I wasn't a nationally ranked player. I didn't play the USTA tournament circuit, but I think it made me a better coach because I had to struggle and I had to learn, and it took me, a lot of time and effort for me to be able to do that. But I wanted to learn how to do that to be the best coach that I could be. So I think if I was a really good player, I don't think that I would be as good of a coach as I was, because I would just be able to rely upon those skills, and those skills are not information. It's a complete different. And if there's any high school tennis coaches that are out there listening to this, I mean, there's just work through the GreatBase curriculum, and you will have a very good understanding, if not a better understanding than most coaches out there, on how to teach players of all levels, and you'll be able to see these these technical flaws that really help other kids. I mean, just this year alone, I had we were the number 6 seed going into our, in Western Pennsylvania in the team tournament here with the boys a couple weeks ago. And the number 6 seed is not supposed to win the entire tournament by any means. And we upset 3 teams on our way to win the championship. And we upset 3 teams because all of my doubles players, all we did all season long was work on overheads. And so we could hit overheads under pressure. And I know that from years past, when the pressure's on and you're making kids hit overheads, it's often a shot that they do not make under pressure. And we lobbed that we made the other teams hit a lot of overheads, and we got a lot of free points, and it grew our kids' confidence to be able to do that. So follow the GreatBase curriculum, coaches, and you'll have a good, better technical understanding than most.
Well, no, thanks for the support on that. And again, as you very well know, that it's just a body of work. It's not, all we've done is just assembled some homework, teaching.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean,
go ahead.
As a school teacher, I mean, I understand the importance of a curriculum. I understand the importance of a thought out plan. And, it's not that, in school, not every math teacher, comes up with their own way to teach math. They find out ways of tried and true systems that work. And then some publishing company just puts it together and organizes it and puts it together. And then, you go to work, and then you have to use your own, your teaching skills to be able to transfer that information to your students. And that's the art of teaching and the art of coaching. But, everybody has to have a curriculum. So the way that you have it organized and it's everybody's work, it's fantastic. And I'm telling you that I've spent more hours than I care to admit to studying tennis, and everything that you have put together that you've learned and organized, it makes 100% logical sense, and it's based in science and physics that just you can't argue it, because you can't change the laws of physics. So it works.
With let me come back on overheads. Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Blink, he actually interviewed Vic Braden, and Vic Braden, knowing without knowing, thinking without thinking, is so many kids they can hit overheads out of the basket, but they can't hit overheads in a match because they don't hit overheads in a match. The brain's got 2 sets of motor programming, one with stress and one without, and that was the thing. Was that Vic was just say, you just know they're going to double fault, and you could just tell when they were going to double fault. But go ahead, Karla. What do you got?
A little bit on the personality types. I guess also depends on the personality of the coach. I know that my kids, when they go to Steve, he's going to work on the weaknesses more than the strengths. Are you more of strength? Do you emphasize more the strength of the player? Like you say, for example, if somebody is like more outgoing and you allow that kid to to be more with other kids. And I know Steve likes to put them a little bit in the where they're not as comfortable. so that they develop the other side of the personality, the one that they're lacking actually.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think he does that not only with the personality traits, but he does also with the game and with other aspects of their of their tennis and the personality itself. So, in my case, I like to focus more on what they're strong and what they can go farther with. But I guess they're both important. But how do you see yourself, Alex?
Yeah, I mean, no, it makes perfect sense. As a coach, sometimes you have to be both. You have to do whatever you need. But I would say that if I would take a kid, say they're a junior or a senior, we're probably going to just work with their strengths, whatever they're good at. We're going to try and make that a little bit better. If I have a kid that's maybe on the varsity team that's not in the starting lineup, well, he's going to probably need to work on some of his weaknesses. And I'm going to have to help him with that. And, or if I have a kid that's in 9th grade or 10th grade that's on the team that I know he's going to be on the team for, 2 or 3 more years, then we're going to have to work on some of those weaknesses as well. But, during the tennis season, the competitive season, I don't really work a ton on, specific technique because we do have so few practices. I tell them it's 30 days. It takes you 30 days to be able to learn how to do something new, and then it takes another 30 days of practicing it before you're actually going to be able to do it in a match. And that's 60 days, and that's almost our whole. That's almost our whole season. So I don't try and change too many techniques. Sometimes I know that you guys have said on the podcast before that like the horse has been out of the barn for so long, and some of those kids, the horse has been out of the barn. And some kids don't want to change, and some kids do want to change. So you have to do that. And as far as personality goes, with my personality, I'm a very organized, structured, routine person. But I realize that sometimes I have to be spontaneous and make things happen, and sometimes I have to be more structured and rigid, and have to be the tough guy. Like they say, sometimes you need a pat on the back, sometimes you need a kick on the behind, and based on what the situation calls for, then that's the person that I have to be. So I have to wear many different hats. I hope that answers your question.
Yep. Okay.
No, that's well put. I do think with just evaluating the environment, the tennis teaching environment. So we have kids. In fact, we had 2 airport runs today, and we're not advertising. It's a very small group. And, so say if someone just comes in here for 5 days and, initially we let them play. And then after that, we just go to work and we put everything on video, and it's for them to take home to their coach. And so that term squad training, to me, I was talking to Jeremy Wertzman the other day. I've known Jeremy since he was, I believe, 11, maybe 10. He went on and became number 1 in the NCAAs, and he's coached at the University of Indiana. And, to me, that's a squad. So maybe he has 2 new players. This year he told me he has 4 new players coming in. But for us, we may have 4 new players the first week of the month and 4 new players the second week of the month. And so we're going to make a study of their game. Ideally what we should do is have a squad of people that we're working with day in and day out, and just have set times where people can come and visit and make that more of a camp. Because sometimes what happens is you slow the group down because you have someone come in and their game's a train wreck, and they're only here for 3 days. So it's very good to, re-emphasize and review and reinforce technique. But like today, before a small group of us came in to watch the Nadal Djokovic semifinal, I got a girl who's going home to Toronto and a boy who's going home to Tokyo, and they both need major work on the forehand. Now, the boy who came in from Tokyo, we let him play. He was here for 3 months, and we let him play every weekend. We worked within his game, based on his set of circumstances. Now we have another boy who's a transfer athlete, American from South Carolina, I think he can be a great player. He was actually sent to us by a person we had on the podcast recently, Alex Vukovic, played at Princeton. And, for 3 months, he hasn't played. It's like, okay. So we use the word personalize or customize. But what's ideal with say the GreatBase, for example, Andy Fitzelzo, he's telling me this, don't, people will pigeonhole what we do and say it's only good for beginners. And that's not really the case. It's good for every level of the game. But ideally, the people who really need to know the GreatBase curriculum, it would be a way for you with your feeder system, Alex, is to train parents and to train hobby coaches, volunteers, to try to teach, kids in the elementary ages to, a ready position, unit turn, and just have elegant, effortless, efficient strokes. And the sooner the better. Actually, in an ideal setting, say a young kid is 6, 7, 8 years old, is they come out and they're really not playing tennis. They're doing all these different things, which is fun, relay races and make it competitive, but they're learning. You start with tumbling, and they've got to be able to run, they got to be able to throw. And because a lot of times with tennis, I do think there's this flip side of that. If you don't let them compete, they're not going to choose tennis. But I'm talking about that age where you can really mold them and you have them play all these different sports that they should be able to say, okay, you snap your fingers and Simon says, show me, you use the word Simon all the time because of the way the game's played, but show me how you hit a serve.
Yep.
And a kid who's, they're still in the first or second grade and they're just shadow swinging. They're on the money. Because most of the time you're not teaching tennis, you're unteaching tennis. They come to you and they have so many holes.
Yeah,
so many holes in their game.
Yes, and it's much easier to teach somebody tennis when they've never played tennis before than it is to teach somebody tennis that's played tennis for several years. That's what I found, and it's difficult to get people to change. Thing even at the end of the tennis season, I'll make videos for certain kids. I'll film their strokes and I'll do a stroke analysis for them and I'll give it to them. And, here's what you can do to make the changes, just like you would do for somebody that would come and visit you. And, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but, you can't force people to do it if they don't want to.
But your background being your education in phys ed, what was your master's program?
Yeah, my master's is in physical education as well. So
Yeah.
I have a master's degree. Yeah, I have a master's undergrad in physical education, and then a master's degree in physical education as well, with an emphasis on elementary school kids, because that's what I was.
One thing I was going to mention during the COVID, it was very difficult for me to teach the kinesthetic learners because, visual learners was no problem. You stand in front, you demonstrate, but the kinesthetic, especially when you have to get close to the player and you have to guide, their arm, or you have to make them close their eyes and do certain movements, I thought I had a hard time. I had a hard time teaching some of the kinesthetic learners for sure.
From the pandemic, we don't have the handshake now. We have the fist bump.
Yeah, when you couldn't get close to the player and you couldn't be on the same side, and you had to be teaching from far away. It was, I think that was also.
My online skill set. We at the beginning of the whole pandemic when everything shut down. We were teaching online, and that was teaching physical education online is a difficult proposition to do. 20 first graders on a little Zoom screen is a difficult proposition to do, but we made the best of it. We did some workouts at home with the pillows and we did it, but with something physical like tennis or it's a lot easier to do in person for sure.
With being in physical education though, I'd say in other countries the coaches are more educated, I think. And I'm a member of the PTR, I use PTA, I was a tester. I guess I've been in each organization over 40 years now. And it's great that the organizations are there, but there just hasn't really been enough. I guess story with Dennis Vandermeer is certifications, not education. It's just needs to be much more in depth. But when you were an undergrad or in grad, did you get to specialize and say, okay, I'm going to have more of an emphasis in, say, soccer or football? Could you choose as a PE major?
No, I mean, we learned how to teach all of the sports, and we learned the skills of everything. But I mean, most of what I really remember, that was the most. I mean, we did a lot of anatomy. We did a lot of exercise physiology. We did a lot of biomechanics. So, when I look at teaching tennis, I look at it from a little different perspective because I have basically an exercise science background. I understand, the anatomy and I understand biomechanics and the forces that go through and how the forces are created. And I think a lot of tennis coaches would really benefit if they had that background of understanding, to be able, when you're teaching somebody technique, it makes a lot more sense when you understand, well, this does this and this does this, and, this pinches your, rotator cuff under your acromion process when you're serving. It makes a lot more sense to people. I think that, I wish that was I wish that more tennis coaches had that background and knowledge. So, I mean, I come from a little, it's a unique background that I have, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sure you enjoyed listening to, I think it's great. You listened to all our podcasts, Gideon Ariel and Jack Groppel. You must have enjoy those two podcasts.
Yeah, yes, I do. I mean, it's great, and biomechanics was probably the most, I had several biomechanics courses, and they were the most difficult courses that I took in school. And, there's a lot of science that's involved. There's a lot of math that's involved, but once you have an understanding of it, you do not forget it,
No, I think we add that to then what Chuck Carisi does, where, I would say with Chuck, with character, I mean, there's shallow learning or shallow teaching, which you have to do. You have to cover this. You have to. Okay, this is what's on the surface. But then when you get into deep learning, when it comes down to character, that's where. I
mean, Coach Creasy, I don't think there's any better. He is able to get people to break through mental barriers that hold them back. And I don't want to say it's not motivation, because he is very motivational, but he just gets people, he gets his players to be able to break through barriers that they didn't even know existed. And, he always says, you become comfortable being uncomfortable. And he really knows how to push the buttons and get people to do that. And I just think he knows more about competition than anybody that I've ever met. I mean, if anybody's just studied his, we use them all the time. He has his guidelines for momentum control. When you're ahead in the score, this is, you play delayed pressure. When you're behind in the score, you play quick pressure. When you're even in the score, you play, whatever your personal style is. Are you aggressive player, or are you more defensive player? And then he has the action reaction guidelines that go along with that based on what just happened. I mean, I don't know of anybody that has any more. I mean, how he understands the depth of the game and the scoring system and just the personality types and how it goes with it. It's amazing to me. He's taught me, so much about just how deep the game of tennis is and how to compete at it. And that's why I know that he's so, he's the no ad scoring. He sees, he knows the history of it, and he's just seeing that, it makes things shorter and it may make things temporarily exciting, but it changes the entire game of tennis. The whole game of tennis is built on, grouping points together and being able to win two in a row when it matters instead of just being able to win one. And that's, I think, his specialty. I mean, that's what I've learned more from him, about competition than anybody else at all. And it all applies directly to your own life as well.
Yeah, I know. I think if you were to take our pillars, he certainly started with Mr. Hopman. Amazing. What an amazing experience for him. Actually, Carlos Goffey and Chuck Creasy were roommates when they worked for Mr. Hopman. But then also, to his background in track and field. You can't BS the stopwatch. But I think that's where, that's what we're trying to do. We don't want to have our podcast become a magazine where we're just interviewing famous people in tennis, people that are, it's kind of like our International Tennis Hall of Fame. People that are just part of international tennis are put in the Hall of Fame. And that's not true, for example, say in basketball. The year Michael Jordan was inducted in the Hall of Fame, there was a high school basketball coach who was inducted in the Hall of Fame. But no, I do think that, you need to combine, so you take biomechanics, and then you take the character side. I mean, Jim Lair, he's one of our pillars, he just calls it the character muscle. But so you have to have the whole package. What do you think with coming back 300,000 plus tennis players? I really think that high school tennis needs a shot in the arm. I got into tennis in the 70s, and everybody played high school tennis. It was a big deal. And I don't really like the fact that kids don't play now. A lot of the 25,000 they're aspiring to play college tennis, less than 3% play college tennis. What do you think can be done to, give high school tennis more of a shot in the arm in the USA?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that they could do, or anybody could do, is just realize that it's a fantastic way to get practice coaching. So young coaches, they can go head out and they can learn, they can practice, and it's very rewarding to be able to do so. And you're your own boss when you coach the team. If you're the head coach of the team, you're basically your own boss. So that would be one thing they can do. And just, if you think about all these college players that come out and they're number 4, 5, 6, 7 on the team, and they're looking for a career. It could be something that they could get some practice and repetition, or start some kind of internship program or something. Because I know that there's plenty of schools and athletic directors in high schools across the country that would love to have somebody come in and even just work for just a year, or 2 years, and things can grow from that. If they do that. But I think that would be the just education. Educate, put on programs for high school coaches, because I know there's high school coaches that are out there just like me. I'm sure there are that are hungry, that want to get better, and they just need to be connected with the right information so they can do so. And you just have to find, you have to have some kind of, and that's something that USTA could do. They could provide some kind of, they have high performance coaching, and they have all this, all these other programs. Why don't they have a high school coaching program or something? I'd be happy to put together something and share the GreatBase curriculum and share, something else, and put some kind of program together for high school coaches that could be free, that the USTA could put out there. I think that would be a great start.
No, I think with money, where's money spent? To me, people in tennis, they start to teach too soon. They're paid too soon. And take the role of the starving artist. I told someone just today, I said, you'd be better off to get a job at night, waiting on tables, bartending, and then immerse yourself into tennis during the day. You got to find a way to support yourself. But could there be funds with the USTA? For someone like yourself has a feeder system, and to do it, but do it bigger and better. But to have funding for that. But like you said, though, you obviously have a background in education, you're working in education, is to have a curriculum. I do think with the GreatBase, for the longest time, 15 years, I believe, give or take, ran our program. It's called Tennis Smith School. well, it was kind of catchy, with my last name being Smith. And, we just dropped that because there's ego in that. And there's no ego in GreatBase. And, really to say there's no ego in giving it away for free. But I do think, with people that enter the profession to earn their stripes, to climb the ladder. Even in college tennis, I think too many times the assistant coaches that are hired, they're hired because they played on the team. For me, if I look at a college roster and you have the head coach and the assistant coach, they're from, the assistant coach played for the head coach. North Carolina State, the head coach, Simon Earnshaw, and the assistant coach, Dave Secker, I think that would be different because Dave Secker is allowed to do some things that he learned during all his years in junior tennis. But no, there needs to be a format. Like say if someone played at such and such university, and then they're going to coach there, what do they bring to the table? I do think that in football, that'd probably be one of the best examples. Basketball, of course, those are such huge sports in this country. Is say, for example, a football coach has a coaching tree. You have, certainly all the time that you spent with Chuck Creasy. I have these 84 pages of quotes here. So we have to have you write the book on Chuck Creasy. But no, I don't think that there's not a system for someone to have stepping stones. And I think initially when someone starts teaching tennis and they go to a fancy club and it's $70 an hour and they're going to get 60% of the lesson, and the club has X amount of coaches, and it's like go fish, and they're fighting for lessons. And it's I'm not anti-capitalism, but it's like if you go to buy an automobile. I know nothing about that, but you drive up. It's not like you buy all that many automobiles in your lifetime, but you drive up and there's like 10 people ready to sell you a car. So obviously they're working for commission, and people, they have to go to the grocery store, they have to pay their bills. But I think there's just too much instant cash when people get into tennis, and I do think that, unfortunately, too many people think that you're not paid enough. I think that's straight across the board. You're not paid enough as a high school teacher. But through tennis, you're allowed to supplement your income, correct?
Yeah. You're definitely allowed to, supplement your income. I teach tennis privately, and I'm able to, supplement my income. And yeah, being a high school coach is not, you're talking not a lot of money at all. Not that you could live on even for a month. But yeah, there's ways to supplement your income, and you could, realistically, you could work a whole other job and still, there's only so many hours that you need to be able to put into being a high school coach. But there's a lot of teachers that are out there, like me, that I'm a teacher. I've worked at, I'm not going to go anywhere for my entire career. I'm going to spend my career at this school. I'm going to give everything that I have to the school. And there's a lot of coaches that are out there that are like that, and they're doing it to coach the team because they love it, and it's a they see the benefit for the kids. And there's a lot of coaches that are out there, and if they became more educated or better educated or just had more information, they'd be able to be better coaches and have better programs. I myself, I tried to do in this just a couple weeks ago. I tried to put on like a coaching conference for other coaches, that were in Western Pennsylvania. If anybody wanted to, I basically was willing to open my doors for half a day and show everybody, this is what I do, this is how I run practice, this is the system that I use, and I didn't get much interest in it, so I ended up canceling it because I only had 2 other people that were interested in doing it. I don't know if the word just didn't get around enough to enough people, but I tried to do my part as well to educate other people.
Well, it's admirable for you to do that. What I would recommend is just use the phrase educate the educate the tennis enthusiast. You can get the expert to the neophyte, the beginner, and get parents, get volunteers, anybody who wants to learn more about teaching, coaching tennis.
Yeah.
And I think you get more people to sign up, and you do it the first year, you do it the second year. I do think with the PTR at one time it was a USPTR, and the term United, or the USPTA, which is United. And I haven't really been active with either organization for years and years now. I pay my dues, but is it really united? And what could unite, tennis? Like say high school coaches. It should be that there's no secrets. Here are the fundamentals. And I just think that's a problem, especially in the private sector, is everybody knows a little better way. This is my 2 cents. It makes no sense for everybody to put in their 2 cents. And, I do think, having been through the Spanish system, that it's not stratified so much where, you're an advanced coach. I have some fun with people introducing themselves to me as a high performance coach. And our listeners on the podcast have heard it. I introduce myself. Hi, I'm Steve. I'm a low performance coach. But no, it'd be great to have an apprenticeship, an internship. And it would be great if people were to share information. And, the coaches that go to workshops and they share the information are people that they're really going to be able to follow it to the point where they're going to take your information and beat you. I don't think that's really the case. I think it's really, it should be for the sport. What's going to help the sport? And, I think that it would be great if you went to a high school tennis match and people were serving and volleying. And it's just like, this is how doubles is played. A problem I think is people want to win when they're a freshman, playing one up, one back, because they go to the net to lose at a faster rate. And what do they do when they're a sophomore? They play one up, one back. And
yep. And it all starts when the kids are young. I mean, if you're coming in and you're in ninth grade and you don't really know how to volley, it's very difficult to teach you how to volley and have have that skill set, because you've relied upon, not volleying for so long to get you where you're at,
Well, the highest levels of the game, Roger Federer. If you can't volley, you won't go to the net. I think people should just be able to quote Roger Federer. It's frightening how low the level play is at Wimbledon. I know that less than 2% of the time my opponents are coming to the net. I think Louis Caillet's stats are over 95% of the women play one up, one back, and at the WTA level, and the men now are at 55% playing one up, one back. You go to Division I college tennis match, now I'd say 2 out of the 3 teams, maybe a hybrid, but for the most part, 2 out of 3 teams are playing one up, one back. And so they are lost arts. And,
yeah. We had girls several years ago. They one girl, she played at James Madison. She just graduated, but she could volley, and it was great because she won the state doubles title 3 years in a row and was in the finals her freshman year and lost in the finals. And, but she had the skill set to be able to go forward. And if you put her with a partner that, she had a partner that was able to go forward as well, they were able to win. They could play one up, one back with the other team. But if they ever couldn't win playing one up, one back, they both went to the net and then they would win. So it was, it was one of the easiest coaching things for me, but she had those skills when she was, little. Her grandfather was a Marine, and he has a tennis court in his backyard, and he taught her to go forward at the net from an early age. You got to learn how to volley.
Yeah, and one of the things that ties into that is, like you said, practicing the overheads, because I've met a coach in Poland that starts the practices with overheads right away, and really puts a lot of time in overheads, because he thinks not only helps your confidence and your serve, because of all the strength that you get from having your arms and your elbows up, but also he thinks that if you really like to hit, the more you practice your overheads, the more you're going to like hitting overheads. But also he thinks that it's going to make you construct the point in a very different way if you want to finish it with an overhead. So if you practice it so much that you like to finish the point like that, then you're going to play the whole point in a very different way. So in order to finish it like that, and and then I think the net game is going to fit into this style of play.
I do think situational training. We do a drill where you have to feed 4 lobs, one on the forehand side, backhand side, forehand side, backhand side, open racket face, so they have to underspin lob. So the right away, if the kid's got an extreme Western grip, you can deal with that. They have to let the ball bounce. They have to hit the overhead right up the middle. And then can you counter off of that and hit topspin? When someone comes to us, obviously they've played some tennis, so they're not a beginner. So we film them. So, pet peeve number 1, pet peeve number 5,782 is when we film kids on the overhead, we say, okay, we're going to film your overhead. They just stand right at the service line, stand right there. And so we go in the classroom, I said, well, we didn't give you any directives. Life gives you the test first and the lesson second. Every time you hit an overhead. And we don't like to have kids come up, I don't know, junior kids, I guess they've never paid for a net. They come up and they slap the top of the net. The top of the net is made out of plastic. Come in and touch the middle of the net and then go back for an overhead. And then you tell kids, if you could hit 100 overheads a day and call somebody up and do baskets. Kids don't do baskets anymore. And I think it's unfortunate, and I understand why people do it. Many places you can't teach with a basket. You can't practice with a basket. You can only go out with 6 courts. And I'm a little cynical on that. And I understand that, okay, people have balls flying everywhere, so there's 2 sides to it. But typically it's like, no, we have to control who's coaching here. It's a business, and we have to be able to collect the percentages from people who are teaching, and because especially here in Florida where it's the land of the car drunk pro. But yeah, overheads. When you hit an overhead, you just know that you did something really well. Like Nadal today, he hit a lot of underspin, and that's where Djokovic was able to force. But it'd be interesting how many points were played, how many overheads were hit, how many times it's clay court, but how many times did they serve and volley. I do think that it's like Chris Evert. She won Wimbledon doubles, U.S. Open doubles. We do have somebody who's checking all these things that I say, but I'm 100% sure she won both those. Maybe I should say 99. But people just think that she could hit ground strokes. But if somebody hits 20 ground strokes and then they come in and they end the point with 1 volley or, a volley and an overhead, a volley and a volley, they get labeled a baseliner. And you don't think they ever came to the net. All one has to do is go back to Wimbledon and watch Borg highlights. He came to the net. And people say, he's a one-dimensional player. That's really not the case.
Yeah, I'll just tell you, coaching high school tennis, if I can get kids to volley and hit overheads and be able to come forward and play forcing tennis, they can compete with kids who, play tennis, but they never come to the net. They play, tournament tennis and they practice and they're, whatever it is, but they can compete with those kids because they're not, just grinding at the baseline all day. They have a strategy that, they have a plan B. If this other kid's better at the baseline than me, then I have to come to the net. So at least I give myself a chance to win. We are our number 2 singles player on the boys team. I don't know if you know what platform tennis is. I don't know if you've ever seen that. So he's a national platform tennis champion. Him and his brother, he has a younger brother on the team as well. And in platform tennis, you have to volley and you have to come forward and hit overheads. You do. That's the way that the game is played. It's all serve and volley. And he played kids, at number 2 singles. He played serve and volley. He played, he knew that he beat these kids from the baseline because he couldn't hit, 100 balls. And, he's playing these other kids. They don't know what to do with him because what do you mean? He's not going to stay at the baseline with me and hit back and forth with me. And, his younger brother played first doubles for us. And, he had the skills to be able to volley and put balls away at the net, which is, it's a great way to get ahead of everybody else, because if you do what everybody else is doing, you're going to get the same result. But if you do something different, then you're going to get a different result. And, I wish kids knew that. One other thing I was thinking about while you were talking is, I encourage the kids to practice on their own, to do baskets, to call each other up to go play practice sets, to go on Sunday morning and go do this. We actually have, at our tennis courts, we have some sheds, and we just have a combination lock on them. And, fortunately everything in our campus is on camera, and, I've never had a problem with anything ever being stolen or anything, but we actually were able to raise some money. We got a ball machine several years ago, and, kids can go out and it's a pretty nice ball machine. It's a Playmate ball machine. They're able to go out and practice anything that they want on their own, with nobody else. And now I have the GreatBase backboards there. And, so I give kids opportunities. I say, you don't need me to be here every day for you to practice. You guys can practice on your own. And I think that's a great skill also.
Ball machine clubs. I've trained so many coaches that, when they started a club, they don't have the capital. And I say, have a ball machine club and, charge $100 a year. And they have to call for an appointment, but only the people that are a member of the ball machine club. And then what you find, it's kind of like the stationary bicycle at home, that people get a stationary bicycle and just becomes a clothes rack. But do you have the ball machine and then you use it? Let me say this, coming back to overheads, is, today people really aren't coming to the net. And the Battle of Boca is a great concept in some ways. I mean, a 4 UTR can be playing a 14 UTR. I would say usually you get players in a tournament that are 6s and players that are 12s. But sometimes there's extreme cases. And it reminds me a little bit of the 70s where, everybody's playing everybody. But it's costing $135. And the back draw is, it's a 4. But it's a standing weekend event, and there's so many positives. A young coach from South Africa has spent a lot of time with GreatBase, Petrus Kukimore, mispronouncing his last name. But he and many others, he's a highly competent, driven coach. He will say to me, or he has said in the past, we spent a lot of time together, he goes, what are you really thinking? And when I'm sitting at the Battle of Boca, I don't want to be doom and gloom and pessimistic, but one, you don't really see someone play an approach shot with the idea they're going to play a volley. You don't see people take a second serve and come in, second serve return. You don't see serve and volley. And then when people get a passing shot, and you've warmed up, and you won the person that you've played for an hour and they haven't been to the net. You warmed up with them, and their racket head on both sides, especially the backhand, is hitting the court when they hit a volley. That's how much downplay they have. But just be able to hit a low passing shot and pass on the second ball. So it's almost like there's no savvy, and I think it's where the sense, because people are just banging balls with these graphite rackets.
Yeah, plus the Battle of Boca is played on hard courts, right?
Yeah, it's a negative.
And I think that's an advantage of playing clay court tournaments is that you can hit that drop shot. You can bring that player in much easier than you would. You get punished if you do a drop shot on a hard court right away. So there's not that many opportunities. But I think clay court gives you that opportunity. Many players, especially baseliners, they move really well side to side, but they don't really move.
Yeah, I've heard a clay court be called a great assistant coach because it really helps you teach. And that's that's would be better if it was at least 2 out of the 4 weekends it was on clay. It wasn't always on hard court. It's a very nice open facility. Mm-hmm. It's in Boca Raton, so the demographics in Boca, there's so many clay courts. The HOAs, the homeowner association, all these clay courts in Boca. I spent 7 years in Boca. It's a hard court facility, a county facility out in West Boca, and there's not really any demand for using those hard courts because adults really refuse to play on hard courts in Florida.
Yeah, they're only going to play on clay. With high
school tennis, the UTR. What are your comments with high school tennis UTR? Are the kids obsessed with the UTR?
Several years ago, before the UTR was even a big thing, I actually talked to Dave Fish about it. Coach Creasy put me in touch with him, and we connected, and I thought it was a great thing. I tried to get it instituted here in Western Pennsylvania. I said, let's all we have to put our scores in anyway. Why don't we put the UTR in? And then we have these kids who, maybe otherwise wouldn't get a UTR because they're not playing any UTR tournaments, or no, they're not playing any USTA tournaments. You give a kid that doesn't have a chance to start to get a UTR, and then maybe they springboard into that and play a UTR tournament. And, I was met with a lot of pushback, not necessarily from other coaches, but a lot of pushback from, just parents in general. They said, well, if my UTR is, I'm playing high school tennis and my UTR is a 9 and I play against a kid with a UTR of a 4, well, that's going to bring down my average of my UTR. And then you get the whole stories with they want to spell their name wrong, or they don't want to do it, or whatever it may be. And yeah, it happens. I mean, it even happened, and I thought, what a great idea. But then, we were met with a lot of pushback from it. And, it never really got instituted. I tried to I'm on our committee in Western Pennsylvania to try and to do that. And I thought it would be great, statewide. I was trying to be one of I was right there with, when Texas started to use it. Texas uses it, I believe, in their whole entire state, in the whole state system. What a great system they have for high school tennis. But I tried to get it implemented, and I thought it would be a great thing. And then I thought, well, look, you can have high school tournaments where you can have a UTR high school tournament. That's one of the things that I, when my kids get a little older and maybe they start to play tennis and I have a little bit more time, I'd like to, hold some tournaments that are, not USTA tournaments, but tournaments for high school players. And we can use the UTR system to do that. And it gives them an opportunity to compete against, other kids, not in the, that play high school tennis, but maybe they're not in the regular, during the regular season.
No, I do think the UTR, there's lots of positives. Now the alphabet soup. Now there's what's the ITF, WTI? What's the new?
Oh yeah. There's a new rating system.
New
right?
rating system.
Yeah.
And Chuck Creasy touched upon that, and I've been told that it's to help regulate. They had to do it. The ITF or the powers to be to help regulate gambling, so they can monitor what's legal, what's illegal, who's throwing matches, who's not throwing matches. But I don't like the fact that the UTR, some kid wants to experiment with their game. They know they can win the match. And it used to be it'd be 3 sets, but now that's not the case. It used to be no ad. It used to be regular scoring.
Yeah.
But coming back to Chuck Creasy, I think it was for 15 years where college tennis was no ad, and the college coaches didn't complain too much because they let them play as many days as they wanted. They weren't limited to 25 days. So just too much red tape, too many rules. But if that third set's going to be a 10-point tiebreaker, and it's like, whoa. I mean, it's kind of a flip of a coin. You could lose. My son Connor played for Ty Tucker at Ohio State, and he won the first set. And he was down in the second set, and he just started hitting balls into the net intentionally. And the coaches said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm going to lose this set so I can play a full third set." Maybe he's down 4-1 or whatever.
Yeah.
He and I'm sure many people, I'm sure he heard it from someone else. He doesn't even consider it a match. If it's a 10-point tiebreaker at the end, I mean, okay, that's the rules of the game and you got to play, but that's really not tennis. But no,
fortunately in Western Pennsylvania, we still play. I mean, all Pennsylvania, we still play. Everything's best of 3 sets, 3 full sets, and it's traditional scoring. So we play deuce ad, and oftentimes the kids come on the team and they say, "Well, what's this? We have to play a full third set. I can't play a 10-point tiebreaker." And no, you're going to play a full third set. And we've had some great. I've had some great stories over the year where kids have, they've really made leaps by winning that long, crazy third set. They're able to come through.
Many times what I'll do, kids will ask me, it's a practice match, and they'll ask me, at least they ask, sometimes they don't even ask, they just automatically play 10 points. But when they ask, I say, well, why don't you two work it out? And sadly, Sadly, they come to me and they played a 10-point tiebreaker, and then I give them the gears. I go, "You got to be kidding me! You had the choice to decide, and you decided to play a 10-point tiebreaker." That brings me back to my hockey days. I mean, if you could get more ice time, like, hey, let's stay out here longer. Let's play more. We love this game.
Yeah, but then you go to the tournament and the parents are ready to call the walkover.
Yeah. No, yes.
And they're paying for it.
It's crazy. Someone's a little bit late and like, well, yeah, we want the win. We don't want to. Right now, okay, the person's got lost in traffic. Their GPS doesn't work, and here are a couple of things. Bjorn Frantangelo, he's from Pittsburgh.
Yes, he is. In Plum High School, right next to us there. He didn't play high school tennis, but his dad actually did a little bit of high school tennis coaching just this past year. Yeah,
I've been around Bjorn a little bit. I mean, my son's 2 years older, I think, so remember him from the juniors. And, actually, I was on the road with my son Connor where they were playing doubles, so I've been around him a little bit, but I knew he was a Pittsburgh guy. Looking this up, I didn't know Bonnie Gaduzak was from Pittsburgh. She was a gymnast who converted, and she was top 10 player in the world. And she was
wow, I didn't know that either.
She was a fighter. Yeah, you'd have to look her up. This would have been in the 80s. She transferred from gymnastics and didn't have the best ball striking, but what a gutsy competitor. Allison Risk from Pittsburgh. I didn't know that. Is it Francesca De Lorenzo? I thought she was from Columbus, but anyway, she trained at the Ohio State Tennis Center for a long time. But so before we got on the podcast, I plugged in tennis players from Pittsburgh. There's tennis. Yeah,
I mean, Western Pennsylvania has some. We've had some. We've had some great tennis players. We've had some kids that just in our our rival school is right next door there, Shady Side Academy. They had a kid named Chris Mangle. He played at Duke. And, he played for their team 1 year and led his team to the state championship and won the individual state championship. And, we've had some great players come out of Pittsburgh.
Chris Mingle, I think I made a video for his sister when she was a little kid. I remember that name. And then when you're in Pittsburgh and you're playing the schools from Philadelphia, it's a population game, right? There's more players in Philadelphia. It's a bigger city.
Yeah. Somewhat. There in tennis in Pennsylvania, there's only two classifications. There's AA and AAA, and it's just based on enrollment in your school. So like the school where I coach at, we have maybe 300, 350 kids in a graduating class. Well, you go out to one of the schools in Philadelphia, they have 1,500 kids in a graduating class. So it's easier for them to pull some more kids. But we have the same thing here in Pittsburgh. We have some schools that are big as well. The school district I work in small, and but we have a lot of kids that play tennis. So it's easy for good coaches have good players, and it's easy for me to get some kids. But yeah, I mean the numbers game, it does make a big difference.
17 years, congratulations, and I think it's fantastic that your dedication that's where you're going to start and that's where you're going to finish. I think. I believe you grow where you're planted. I mean, I could look to pursue other things, but I just, grow where you're planted and I try and flourish where I'm at and do the best that I can. No, we had Cole Reeves on from Arkansas, and I think it's great that he wants to make tennis happen where he is. I think too many times people are thinking, well, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence, but no, that's fantastic. Let's wrap this up here. Anything that you want to add, Karla, or ask before we close out?
No.
You're good?
Yeah.
From Bolivia. Bolivian Tennis Connection.
Where is your last name from?
I have some Czechoslovakian in me, some Polish in me. But yeah, I mean, my great grandparents, descendants from, Europe over there. Somewhere. I don't know all my ancestry, my family tree there, but I believe it's from Czechoslovakia.
Slezak, it's not an Irish name. I can assure you that.
No, I was in Florida one time and I met Martin Daum. He has a son that plays tennis.
Yeah, a big tall guy. Yeah.
Yes, big tall guy, and I met his son. His son was probably maybe like 14 or 12 at the time, but he said to me, "Slezak, that's like Smith and over there." And I said, "Oh, I don't know," but yeah.
I thought it meant like from Silesia region in Poland. It's like eastern part of Poland.
Yeah.
Just have to start telling people Slezak, it's Polish. It means perfect. With no, it's been great to have you on. You want to close out with any thoughts to help our listeners, Coach?
No, just thanks for everything that you guys do on the podcast, and keep sharing your information. And if there's any high school coaches out there listening to this, just follow the GreatBase curriculum, and it'll take you, really far.
No, I appreciate the plug. It's a body of work. There's been a lot of ideas, I guess, information, ideas, insights assembled. In closing out, I think that we just need to do a better job to improve our game. I mean, it's I think you mentioned Chuck Creasy. He's a guardian for the game. I mean, he cares about the game, and to see the scoring system change. I think our side of it is, I mean, for me, it's fingernails across the blackboard. I meet somebody and they've been playing tennis for 5 years and they're just so poorly taught. And it's just unfortunate. But it's, we do look forward to having you visit. Maybe I need to visit Pittsburgh. I know everybody says it's a beautiful place. Last question I have is Sidney Crosby. You must be a Sidney Crosby fan.
I grew up in the back-to-back Stanley Cups with Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr. So, but yeah, love Sidney Crosby. He done a lot for Pittsburgh and hockey, and I grew up playing hockey as well. So it's still a sport that I follow and I love, and so great place to be for sports and championships.
Yeah, we could talk a little bit about Terry Bradshaw and the Super Bowl champions, but with Sidney Crosby, for our hockey listeners, the U.S. were doing really well against Canada. Now, granted, Canada has the depth to have. This is for the gold medal. And Canada has enough depth to have 3 or 4 teams, but the U.S. were doing great. So they play 4-on-4 in the overtime, which is not what you want to do. You don't want to have Sidney Crosby playing 4-on-4. You want to have it be 5-on-5 where there's not as much space. And so he scores the goal. So shortly after, I was in Canada training this group of coaches, and I said, well, the first thing I'd like to say is you really didn't win that game. And it was just like tennis. Instead of having the overtime be 5-on-5, in the Olympics they had the overtime be 4-on-4. I mean, Chuck Creasy may not know much about ice hockey, but he would just have to hear that story and go, why did you break tradition? And, Sid, the kid, the superstar, but he got the goal. But one time in Tampa, took my 2 sons and a couple tennis players, and it was like a perfect night. As I go down, and I got some experience scalping tickets, and we're in good seats. And Mario had been injured with his back, or maybe it was when he was out with the Hodgkin's disease. And so he comes back, and it was perfect. It was Mario scores 2 goals, and Tampa won in overtime. Because, we're pulling for Tampa, but it was great to see. I mean, I've seen Mario Lemieux play. This guy was so skilled. You talk about efficiency. They always say that Mario Lemieux and Jean Beliveau, when they would stick handle, you could never hear the puck. And hockey is the same, all sports, is that if someone can really skate, they're just efficient. If someone can hit the ball, it's aesthetically appealing. And I'll shut up, but I just think a quote we don't share enough is Virginia Wade, is winning tennis doesn't lead to beautiful tennis, but beautiful tennis leads to winning tennis. And no, I hope a lot of listeners have heard what you're doing in Pittsburgh, and and how can they contact you if they want to follow up?
You just Google my name, and I'm sure my email or something will come up. My name is Alex Slezak, AlexSlezak.
What's the name of your school?
Fox Chapel Area School District. Yep.
Yeah, we'll put that alongside with the podcast. But Alex, Karla, thank you very much for your time. It's been great to have a chat with the two of you.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
All right. Adios.
We'll see.
All right. That was great. Well, I think we have to sign off. We're trying to keep our podcast under 3 hours. Actually, it's amazing how many people say they don't mind the format. But no,
Natalia says she can only listen when she's driving.
But if people do that, she mentions Natalia. It's not Karla's daughter, Natalia. We have two Natalias hanging out with us on a day-to-day basis here as of late, and Natalia Sorkin, the parent coach, who loves tennis, great passion for it. But yeah, if people listen 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, and you can get through it in the week.
That's true.
But number 95 is in the books. Thanks for listening. Again, Alex Slezak. Great passion for the game.
Yep.
Adios.